Okay, is Katie on? Let me see. I don't see Katie Williams yet. Who's the first agenda? Jasmine, do you see her in the waiting room at all?
No, I was just letting in Tom here. He was the only one that just came in late.
Okay.
And she did respond, thank you to the invite.
Yep.
Oh, here's George.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get started, and hopefully before we get through the introduction, she will appear. Otherwise, we'll just move things around a little bit. Good evening. I'm Carol Lisbon, Chair of the Dover Planning Board, and I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. on December 9th. This meeting is being conducted by Zoom via authorization from the governor in May of 2023. The Zoom meeting will also be recorded and will be available on the Dover website under Community. For those of you who are attending tonight, if it's not your agenda item, we would appreciate you being on mute. And once it is your agenda item, to stay on mute unless you wish to speak, in which case you can go off mute, let us know in chat or raise your hand. And if you don't notice that, to politely interrupt us. So our goal is to have everybody who's on tonight speak if they wish and to get their input.
Kate just joined, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Kate just joined.
Oh, great. Okay, so and we have, I first want to introduce Micheline Boudreau, who is on the warrant committee and will be our liaison along with Cam Hudson as the warrant committee reviews both budgets and warrant articles for the May 2025 town meeting. So welcome, Micheline, and we look forward to working with you. And our first item on the agenda tonight is an interview for the associate member position with Katie Williams. The associate member position is one that normally gets elected at town election in May. But due to a resignation, Val Lynn, who had been our associate member, was appointed by the planning board and the board of selectmen to be a full voting member. And that leaves open an associate member spot. We were lucky enough to have 3 candidates, and Katie is the last one to be interviewed. We've had Matt Hadge and Lou Ryan. And depending on how the planning board members choose to proceed later on in the evening tonight, we may take a vote on that position. So with that, let's focus on Katie. Is it Kate? Is it Katie or Kate? Which do you prefer?
Actually, I'm a Katie, but I do go by Kate at my firm. Due to the fact when I started at my firm over 10 years ago, there were 2 other Katies, a Katie Murphy and a Katie Hill. And there was much confusion over who was what. So I tried to switch myself to a Catherine. There was also a Catherine Williams. So I went to Kate. But I come from a large family, so I go by Kate or Katie. So for purposes of this meeting, let's say Katie, but it's fine if you call me Kate.
Okay, very good, Katie. Well, thank you for paying attention to the publication of the open position, and we certainly appreciate your application. So why don't we just start by having you talk a little about yourself and why you're interested in joining the planning board.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So let me start really with myself and my family and how we are a part of Dover right now. We have been in Dover for 3 years, and Massachusetts a little over 6 years. My family and I are originally from Chicago. We relocated here due to a change in my husband's job. The law firm I work for is an international law firm, has offices in both Chicago and Boston, so it was an easy switch for me. That being said, I have been in the practice of real estate law, well, the practice of real estate for really over 25 years, the practice of real estate law for over 20 years. My interests really lie in development, preservation, renewable energy work, and things of that nature. I've been at my firm for a little over 10 years, and was just recently promoted to partner.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's it in a nutshell. I don't know how detailed I want to get.
That's fine, and we've all seen the material that you have sent to us as well. I'm going to take a brief break from this and do something that I always forget to do, which is the roll call, since we are on Zoom. So I'm going to quickly do a roll call, and then we'll get back to talking to Katie. So George Sidgwick,
Here.
Bill Motley, Val Lynn,
Here.
Jody Shu,
Here.
and Carol Lisbon. And I will note for the record that Bill Motley raised his hand.
Thanks, Carol.
Okay, sorry for that interruption, and now we'll get back to Katie. So I'll open it up to any of the planning board members to ask any questions or comments to Katie.
I'll start with my usual question here. And I think I may know where this is going based on your sort of summary of your resume, maybe, and some of the comments that you've made. But each of us on the planning board generally have our own sort of pet projects or things that we hold near and dear to our hearts, or things we'd like to see maybe get done in town. For some of us, that's the downtown area. For others, it's sort of tree and development related. Do you is there anything in particular that you would like that you're focused on or would like to see done?
Well, that's a tough one because it's hard for me to provide those answers without knowing what's in front of all of your plates, right? So if I came out with like a particular interest, which I may have one, after hearing what you're dealing with and what everyone's little agendas are, it could easily change my mind. I can tell you that my family and I were attracted to the Dover area because we love the trees, we love Mass Audubon, we love the area of Dover itself. So I could potentially lend towards the tree and conservation aspect of it, at the same time as a human being who would love a little bit of a downtown. The development of our little downtown area also poses an interest. So that's a middle of the road answer, George, for you. They both are intriguing to me. Let's put it this way.
All right. Thought you might go in a solar direction there, given your other comments, but that's fine.
Actually not. And you probably don't want to hear my divergence on that, but I'm not inviting, the increase of like solar panel farms, let's say, to Dover. That's not something I would like to see happen in Dover. And we'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
Katie, welcome to Dover and welcome to the planning board. I also am from the Midwest and lived in Chicago for quite a while. So it's nice to see another one here. And kind of like George, I mean, I don't know if there's anything in particular that you have identified since living in Dover for the past couple of years that you might be interested in as being, if you were to be on the planning board as being a lead. Each of us kind of takes a different lead project. So some of us are working on the MBTA's Communities Act. I don't know if you're too familiar with the MBTA Community Act.
No.
So that's a more recent piece of legislation that came from the state that has to do with housing. And so I'm just kind of interested with the work that you've done. Have you been involved in, I'm assuming that you have in zoning. I was looking at your resume. It looked like you were involved in a lot of leasing and looking at the structures of commercial properties, is that right? Like the
Yes.
leasing structures of commercial, yeah.
Yeah, and also the purchase and sale of real property, which deals with zoning. As I'm sure you guys are all very well aware, zoning is a very local specialized practice. So I'm familiar with zoning regulations. I'm also familiar with zoning codes and how infrequently those are updated. So everyone's spending all their time applying for all these variances or permissions to do such and such, and it's kind of a time waste, right? Because in reality, codes should be revised to the current day. I know in Chicago, I think the zoning code, they had one that was over, I think, 50 years old, that was revised after that. So I'm sensitive to those issues and sensitive how local and politicized those issues are. So you mentioned about multifamily housing. Obviously, that's a layered, multi-layered concept. To me, I feel that, Dover doesn't have town water. I like to start from the basics, rather than getting up to where everyone gets heated everyone thinks they're fighting over one issue, but really it boils down to the basics. They don't have town water. It seems to me these past couple of years, we've had an issue with drought. I don't know if this is the time to talk about bringing in multi-housing to Dover when there are bigger issues to fix before that comes to play. That being said, I'm not against it. I just think that sometimes it's better to adjust the bigger issues that are at the bottom to see how you can layer in all types of suggested changes that may come from the state or local zoning authorities.
Yeah, I think you have kind of hit the nail on the head. That's exactly a lot of the discussions that we have as far as the challenges as a small community and lack of infrastructure and trying to comply with the housing needs of the greater Massachusetts area.
Yeah, and it's tough because it really is. Sometimes you're just fighting with somebody who's just they're just stamping paper. People are just stamping paper and passing it through. And there's no thought behind it. And then you have to spend time, filing your paperwork to send it back to someone who has to stamp it, review it, and send it along. And, sometimes it really does take someone to, this is not the answer. So I don't have the answers, but I do know sometimes it is picking up the phone and calling someone and saying, look, this is the issue. Here's the stance. This is the real problem. I'm not against your idea. I'm saying how Dover is different from Newton. Let's put it that way. We landed in Newton when we first came here from Chicago because all of my online research said that's where you need to go. And Newton had all of these issues about whether they were going to do these multi-tenant, housing that's off of Needham Street. And we were following a lot of that. And there's lots of arguments that go in, but Dover is special. It's got a different argument. And I think sometimes those arguments should be brought to the forefront rather than everything else that gets layered on top.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
George or Jody?
Hi, Katie. Thank you for your interest in the planning board. It's nice to meet you. And I think it's really cool, your background and your experience and what you might be able to bring to our work, which is complicated. A little more so. I'm not a lawyer, so I have that handicap versus people who have a legal background, but it's a really interesting place to sit and look out at the issues facing Dover, which it seems to me, having been on the planning board for a few years, become a little bit more complicated every year. And so I think that it's a really interesting and challenging place to be a volunteer community leader, thinking about these issues in the macro sense, but also understanding that we're all neighbors and we're all, going to run into each other at the Dover market. Do you have a perspective on, other boards or community work that you've done that you found especially challenging, or also maybe on the upside, a positive experience for you personally? I know I read your materials. It looks like you have 2 kids in the school system, which is awesome. So I'm just curious what your experience has been like, if you've been involved with other organizations in Dover and how you found that. personally?
Yeah, so it's very funny. I was very involved with the PTO in all of my kids' schools up until Dover because it was the last move, and I just didn't have that ounce to give when we first came in because it was still just redoing everything. That being said, I like to say that I'm an avid volunteer parent, so I'm quick to join in and help out and buy the cookies from Wegmans rather than send them along. And I've met some of the PTO members and organizers. I volunteered for some of the high school dance, or the high school dance and the middle school dances. I try to get involved, not as much as I used to be. So in Dover, this will be really my primary contribution back to the community. And honestly, I feel I've graduated from it because I'm at the point now where my kids really don't want to see me there. They don't want to see me at the dance. They don't want to see me around. So I'd like to say that I graduated to this. With respect of, my other contributions, I would like to say to the state of Massachusetts, my firm is a huge promoter of pro bono work. I do a lot of pro bono work for arts in the state of Massachusetts and non-for-profit organizations, women-owned organizations. So I've seen a lot of challenges that come with that. I like to say, it's dealing with government entities, which is challenging, frustrating, slow, and time consuming. But yeah, if I get elected to this position, this will be my contribution back to Dover.
Great, thank you.
Bill, it's always hard to go last. All those good questions and comments first.
No, exactly. I think that they all, my fellow select members, asked some great questions. So I don't have any additional creative and inspiring questions to ask you, Kate. So I think I'll leave it with what Jody and Val and George had asked.
Okay, well, I think everybody has said it. We try to meet the needs of Dover citizens at every meeting through the more mundane aspects of applications for pools and accessory dwellings and so forth. But the real challenge, and I think intellectual challenge and the fun, really, I think for all of us, I can speak for all of us, is looking at the future of Dover and seeing how the planning board can work with input from the town to move the town forward while addressing all the challenges that they have, whether it's financial or the increased challenge of development and keeping Dover in some fashion like the Dover that we all love, given the pressures that we have. And that's the part that this planning board has spent an awful lot of time on over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And by bringing things to town meeting and looking at those bylaws. And I will tell you that we have bylaws from the 1940s. 50 is pretty new. And therein lies a huge challenge.
Well, and that's something that that's where, these are some of the things I could bring in. These are some areas that I can assist in. I hope I could bring some of my talents to you, because something like this, that's in my bucket. This is my wheelhouse of, things that I can offer to the planning board. That's easy for me. I know it's not easy so much to get them passed and changed, but it's a little bit of my specialty.
That's great to hear. And yes, it is a process.
Katie, just one other question I have. Do you have questions for us? It was occurring to me, like, as you look at the planning board, did anything come to your mind as like, wow, how does that work? Or what is the commitment?
So Carol gave me a little rundown of the commitment. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is just the process of how town directives come to the planning board, and what does that look like? What is here is what we decided, planning board. We either follow what we just told you, or can you give us some input back? I guess maybe that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's really a
good question, because it's a little bit of a mix, and anybody else just please weigh in. But for example, the MBTA commuter bylaw requirement that's coming from the state is one of those ones that comes from the top down. And it's the planning board's responsibility to bring a bylaw that would bring us into compliance to town meeting before December of 2025. So we know what we have to do. It's statutorily our responsibility as a planning board, but that's not always the case. And in fact, it's not often the case, at least in my experience. Instead, we have, initiatives that we undertake to try to hear from residents about issues that they're concerned about, and then try to be responsive to those concerns, while at the same time having on as a group our planning hat, which is like, how do we see development in Dover? How do we see the challenges facing Dover, whether it's infrastructure related or development pressures or affordable housing or the many, many other issues that come before us. And then we try to juggle, competing priorities and say, okay, well, this year, I think we have the bandwidth to bring these 3 bylaws to town meeting, and we're going to continue to try to strengthen some of the regulatory pieces of the puzzle that don't require a town meeting. And we kind of do that on an annual basis, thinking about what we think our priorities might be and getting consensus among the board about what we think are the most compelling issues for the year. And because we're an all volunteer board and we meet, every other week, we have a lot on our plate. And so we try to manage the priorities and try to bring to town meeting those bylaws that we think will be the most impactful for the town. And sometimes they pass and sometimes they don't, or sometimes circumstances, force us to adjust. And all of those have happened during my tenure on the board, but that's what sort of makes it fun and interesting, because we do have a lot of latitude, working, of course, in partnership with the Board of Selectmen and other boards to try to get a gauge for, what's really going on in town and where we think we might have the most impact. Carol, anybody else?
No, very, very well said, as always, Jody. And, one of the things that is relatively unique about Massachusetts and some of the other New England states is the independence of some of the boards and committees. So, Board of Health and Planning Board, as an example, have basically a fiduciary responsibility. We have rules and regulations for us set in Mass General Law, and we are elected. So we try to work together. It's a small town, so we try, all of the boards and committees try to work together as a team to address the issues facing Dover. The other side of the coin is that we do have independence as an elected body to pursue initiatives that we think are good for the town. And I don't know, last 5 to 8, 10 years, we're batting 1,000, so. But we do have that kind of leeway that Jody was talking about, and that's why that's the fun part, versus having to do the grunt work, if you will, of a planning board, which is approving pools and barns and sports barns and garages and so forth and so on. That's all important for the citizens of Dover, but it doesn't move the town forward. So we really have 2 major functions.
Yeah, and that's the exciting part. I mean, I must admit, it would be exciting to be a part of that process and being able to assist in any way I best can, knowing that you guys have all the knowledge, right? I could only bring, hopefully, my tools or wheelhouse of expertise to make those things go smoother and more efficiently. That would be the idea.
Thank you. Well, of course, in addition to the 5 of us, we have our town planner, Jasmine, who's there tonight. And, she brings to us the professionalism of planning. And we use town council an awful lot, as you would expect, as we're looking at some of these initiatives and so forth.
Can I ask who the town council is? Does it matter? It doesn't matter to me, but I was just
Sure,
curious.
we use Anderton and Krieger,
Okay,
which we've used for quite some time now, well over a decade, and Nina Pickering Cook is our counsel.
Okay.
And I've worked with Nina. I mean, it's been at least 15 years, so she's been around. She really knows Dover, and has been very supportive of Dover in total and the planning board specifically.
perfect.
Yep. Okay, if there aren't any more questions or comments for Katie? And Katie, thank you, Jody, for offering that to Katie. And Katie, if you don't have any more comments, the plan is at the end of the meeting tonight, we've got in the published agenda, which you've all seen. We will hopefully take a vote tonight. I will say we're in the enviable position of by May having 2 positions open. So George Sidgwick has announced that he will not be running for a second 5-year term. So that full-time position will be open. And somebody will have to run for that position for the Maytown election. And then, of course, whoever is currently appointed to the associate position will also be running again.
Okay.
So tonight,
So
as
one position will be, basically we'll have to, like you said, we'll have to run for and be elected in May, and the other one would roll in and be elected at a later time. Is that
no,
right?
no, town election will cover everything in May. So
Got it.
at the Maytown election, we'll have a vote. The town will be voting on a full 5-year term, full voting member. And then we'll also be voting for an associate member. It's the associate member that gets appointed tonight will then get appointed at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting. And that appointment is only good until the next town election, is the way the bylaw works. So we have 3 candidates, and basically over the next 5 months, 2 positions for the 3 candidates. So, but we'll get into that a little bit more later on in the evening. And I hope, Katie, you'll be able to stay and watch us in action tonight. We've got a couple of good applications going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Great.
then when would I be able to when would I hear of any later news? Like what would the timeline be? I wouldn't know.
Well,
until-
if the 5 members choose to vote tonight, then we'll make a decision tonight for the appointment, and then we notify the Board of Selectmen, and they will approve the appointment as well at their next meeting.
Yeah.
Which is before the holidays. Okay. Okay, with that, let us go on to agenda item number 1B, which is site plan review of 14 Normandy Road. We seem to have an awful lot of citizens here tonight. So I would appreciate those that are here for 14 Normandy Road to speak up and let us know your name and address. Is anybody here for 14 Normandy Road? Matthew Hand?
No, I don't see him on. Who is this engineer? Joyce Hastings.
Do you see Matthew's iPhone?
That might be him. Um,
Whoever's showing up is Matthew's iPhone. You're muted and the camera is off. Okay, well, if somebody shows up, we will get back to this one. So why don't we jump to item number 1C, which is the site plan review of a garage at 15 Park Avenue. And I know we have quite a few people tonight, so if folks can just start speaking up and giving names and addresses, we would appreciate that. So let's
Christine,
take- Yep.
Christine here, 15 Park Ave.
Tom here, same 50 Park Ave, we are the applicant.
Thank you. We have an Indra and John Gertia.
Yes, that's us.
Peter and John Gertler, 14 Oakley Road.
We're in a butter.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, John Doherty and Lisa Doherty from 11 Park Avenue.
Okay. Heidi Handler? You're on mute.
Heidi Handler on 4 Park Avenue.
Thank you.
Liz Marson, 9 Park Avenue.
Thank you, Liz. Let's see, who else do we have here? We have somebody named Steve, no last name. Steve, are you here for Park Avenue? Jim Coughlin?
They are both. I'm not sure why their voices aren't being heard.
Jim Coughlin is okay. And Tom, did you say Steve as well?
Yes.
And what is his last name? Do we know?
You're on mute.
Christine, you're on mute. Still on mute. Can't get off mute.
Stephen Hirschberg.
There it is.
Okay, here we go. Your address, Steve?
Okay.
4 Oakley Road.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't know if I'm able to speak, but it's Matt Hand. I was on mute and I couldn't figure out how to get it off. I'm at 14 Normandy Road.
Oh, okay, Matt, we're going to, since we didn't get a response a couple of minutes ago, we moved to the next agenda item. So after we finish this site plan review, we'll get back to yours.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for checking in.
Jim is also Oakley Road. I'm not sure the number.
Jim Coughlin, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we can look all that up. Okay, so as is our practice with site plan reviews of this nature, we usually give the applicant a chance to introduce the project to us. And I see that Jasmine is putting up the site plan. So Christine or Tom, whoever would like to talk about the project, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. So we're you know what? First, I'd like to express my thanks to Jasmine. She was so extraordinarily helpful in battling the paperwork war to get us this far. So super helpful. Never done this before. So, you know, ran into a lot of roadblocks that I didn't know were there. So she was super helpful in getting us here. So thank you for that, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Also, never having done this, Carol, could you explain quickly what the purpose of the site plan review meeting is and what the planning board's sort of responsibilities are?
Sure. So site plan review is one of the main operational day-to-day aspects of the planning board. It's all detailed in our bylaws and regulations. And the purpose of a site plan review is to take a look at plans that folks have for additional dwellings, buildings on their property to ensure that they meet various criteria that are listed and that we'll be going through in a little bit with our decision. We do not do site plan reviews for a single family home. But if that single family home then decides to add a pool, a patio, a sports barn, a garage, an accessory dwelling unit, then we would be looking at it. And we'll be reviewing things relative to noise, the environment, protection of town resources, and those types of things.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great. Thank you for clarifying for me. Yeah, so our request is for the site plan review is to build a detached 3-car garage, kind of a 1.5 story classic salt box Cape style building in the style of a classic New England barn. Purpose of the garage is to store a couple of cars and motorcycles and related spare parts, tools, equipment, and such. We've kind of situated it at the southwest corner of our lot, right up against what looks like a road that's not really a road. It's a paper road, if you will, where it says Oakley Road. That's all woods. Carol, you stopped by today and you saw, right? That the tarmac does not continue that far. So that's all empty space right now. But the setback is from a property line. And as you know, for an accessory dwelling, the setbacks are 1/2 of the stated zoning, right? Because that's on a road, it counts as a front setback, not a side, sadly. So that stated 20 feet is 10 feet for the accessory building, and that's where we situated it. On the front side, along Park Avenue, the setback is also 20 feet, and actually we're right on the setback line at 20 feet. So that's well past the required 10 feet off of the property line. Part of the process that Jasmine helped us with was trying to figure out all the lot coverage issues. And there's really 2 calculations we did, and it's somewhere down further on or up further. Yeah, there's 2 things. One is the lot coverage from a zoning perspective, right? That the buildings can occupy more than 20% of the land. And we're well within that. We're at 16.8 or 9%. Right. And then there's the secondary consideration for lot coverage, which pertains to the groundwater requirements, that any impermeable area, including said buildings but also including driveways, right? Blacktop driveways, which we do have, that total, to the extent it exceeds 10%, right? So you're allowed 20% with your buildings, but if you have more than 10%, then you have to mitigate and recharge some of the water, the runoff back into the ground on site. So you can see that if you scroll back up to the barn area, you can see that we're putting a permeable driveway. The driveway is going to be gravel, so it's not going to be blacktop, right? So I don't want a rushing river going through there. And we've also added a catch basin, essentially at the lowest point, not quite the lowest point, but very much the lowest point. And that'll catch all the runoff from the barn, also from the driveway, including the existing driveway, and it'll recharge there. Carol, as you saw, my property dips down a little bit to the back corner, but then from there it goes up everywhere. So the runoff from there doesn't go anywhere. It recharges right on the property. And there's actually no place for it to run off. And even with the rains we've had recently and some of the heavy rains, it doesn't even get wet back there. The ground is super sandy here. It's great. The drainage is super. But we've provided for that just in case some of that runoff does get past and doesn't have the ground to get absorbed into. So that's basically it. We do have some excavating to do. There's you can see by the topographical lines there that our property slopes up towards the street. So we're going to be digging that down so that the garage sits lower. It'll be substantially lower than the house, and it'll sit sort of down in the berm there below Park Avenue. In essence, at about the same height as the barn that's already there.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Thank you for all that. We did receive a letter from various neighbors with some concerns. So before we open it up to planning board discussion and further input from the abutters, I would appreciate, Jasmine, if you would go through that letter and address the specific concerns that have already been raised.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So this was a letter that we received, I believe it was yesterday or Sunday afternoon, just addressing some concerns for the initial response from the abutters to the application. So the comment was that they believe that there is a commercial truck repair business. We have spoken to the owner applicant, and they have disclosed that is not what is happening there. That is not their intention there. So we don't have any provisions for that right now. If they would like to open up a business, they would have to apply through the correct circuits for that. There are multiple structures already on the site, but they are underneath the 20% in lot coverage, and they are mitigating the over 10% impervious surface on the site. Per chapter 185-10, they are allowed to have a commercial vehicle on the residence. And if they wish to have more, they can go for a special permit through the Zoning Board of Appeals. The setback from the Oakley Road that is required, that's a separate chapter in the zoning bylaw. It's required 15-foot clearance. And if you can see on the plan, there's actually a 20.1-foot clearance from the corner of the roadway, the way that is calculated. That is designated on the plan. So again, no commercial businesses. There is no commercial business being proposed at this time. Maintenance and repair vehicles on the property is allowed under doing work on your own vehicles. And the setback from Oakley Road is sufficient on that site. And in addition, any violations of this nature would go to our zoning enforcement officer, who is Walter Avalon. So any noise or use that seems outside of this use would go to our zoning enforcement officer, who then has the capacity to act on it. Us as the planning board, we don't have the capacity to act on something of that nature.
Thank you. Tom or Christine, is there anything you want to add in response to the letter from your neighbors?
Yeah, I guess the only clarification, Jasmine, is that I think the setback from Oakley Road is 10 feet, not 15.
It's the corner lot clearance.
The
So
corner, yeah, okay.
So that's a different requirement than the rear and yard setback. So that is 15 feet in our zoning bylaw, but you are still within that 20.1 feet. The engineer did include that on the plans.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So I'll now open this up to the neighbors for any additional comments that they might have over and above what's already been given to us in your letter and the response from Jasmine, our town planner. Does anybody else have anything new to add?
Mike, this is John Gertler. As we said in the letter, if it's not a commercial repair thing, the repairs are ongoing and continuous throughout the year. I don't know, do we see vehicles besides just the ones you drive being repaired? There are air wrenches, there are compressors, there's hammering, there's welding. This is not oh, I want to tune my car up in my drive on a Sunday. This happens weekdays, weekends, evenings, late at night.
Rattles our windows.
So to say this is just, parking a few cars in a garage and changing your oil or something, that's not what we have seen over the years. And this has been going on for many years.
And let's talk about keeping Dover like Dover. This is not Dover. There's no place in Dover that has activity like this. And I'd like my other neighbors, we don't have other signatories from that letter on because they're elderly, but there are other neighbors here that have witnessed this. This is not just us, the abutter. There are other abutters here and other nearby neighbors.
So of course, as Jasmine explained, one of the issues is whether it is a commercial business or whether it's just somebody who likes to tinker and work on their own cars that they own. So I believe, as Jasmine said, that we have been assured by the hearers that it is the latter and not the former.
Jasmine doesn't live next door to them and have to listen and see all these cars.
But are all these cars, every car that you worked on there is one you've owned? And have you owned it for a long time, or have you just bought cars, fixed them up and sold them?
Is that a question for Tom and Christine?
Well, I guess so, because they're saying that this is
Is that
just
pertinent to a site plan review, Carol?
Well, it's only pertinent if in fact you're conducting a commercial business.
And the answer is no.
And as long as you're not conducting a commercial business, then it is not pertinent. And as Jasmine has explained, if you find that there's excessive noise, first of all, one would hope that neighbors would just work this out. But we have in the planning board, actually over the last several years, have found lots of folks in Dover happen to have more than a car or two or three. And there are more cars than people in their homes. Many of them are collect cars, and many of them like to, without disrespect for folks that work on cars, putter with their cars and do repairs and keep them in shape. And, you know, some of them are vintage and some of them are not, but it is the right of any individual to have a car hobby on their property. And there is absolutely nothing in our bylaws or our regulations that prohibit that.
Have Tommy
This-
answer
I
the
would-
question.
I did. I will say that, you know, having a garage will put a lot of the work that we do in the driveway right now inside of a building, and that would mitigate the noise substantially.
And what are all the cars that you're working on? I mean, these are all ones you own?
We do not have a
And this
commercial
is for your-
operation here.
You're driving or for your racing or?
Yeah, we sometimes have a race car here, but that's not a commercial operation. That's a car that I drive.
Again, the planning board does not get into analyzing and opining on one's hobbies.
Carol, this is not a hobby. We live right next door. We walk by every day. We've seen so many cars. It's not a hobby. These are many cars, many, many very different cars. They come, they go, they're never seen again.
It was interesting to say that the purpose of this building was to park your cars, which I think it's going to be more than that. Is it not going to be to repair and as what you're doing in driveways and out there with all the noise that goes along with that? Is that not what's going to happen in this?
It's not
building?
happening now. It's not happening now. It won't happen in the future. One of the other primary considerations was saving the cost of a divorce attorney, because my wife would like to park her car in the garage by the house. So this will take care of that.
Well, we sent to the planning board today a video of your son welding in the driveway with sparks flying everywhere. And we know that welding, you shouldn't be walking anywhere near, and seeing welding, we're in a drought condition.
So yes, thank you for that video. Again, it is not something that is under the legal purview of the planning board to address.
Okay. Let's some of the other.
So are there
Yes.
any other comments from abutters before we open this up to questions from the other planning board members?
I think I see Heidi Handler.
Yeah,
with her-
that is me. Thank you. I live at 4 Park Avenue, which I'm not technically an abutter. I live on the corner, like the first house in from Dedham Street on Park Ave. Probably as far away on Park Ave as you could get from 15 Park. I have some serious concerns about noise, environment, and the use of resources. I will try and limit my comments to different things than the Gertlers have said. I know those are registered. In terms of it happening, noise happening at all hours, I would agree. It happens at night, it happens during the day. Yesterday at about 5 p.m., pitch blackout, I was walking my dog at the end of the street next to Dedham Street, and I could hear the welding. That's as loud as it was. That's not a quiet tinkering with a car. That affects the whole neighborhood. So I'm not in a abutter, but I could physically hear it. I was speaking with another person. They asked me what noise was. That's the first thing. In terms of traffic, I have noticed an uptick in traffic not speaking to whether there's a business or whether they are collecting commercial money or anything like that. I have noticed an increase in traffic and persons driving really fast to get to the end of Park. Park and Oakley are sort of a U, and I've seen people speeding one way, speeding the other that I never used to see. I walk a dog by myself very early and later at night. I've had to stand in the middle of the road to try to get people to slow down. I can't tell you where they're coming from because
Exactly.
I cannot see that, but I have noticed a difference. I do walk by myself at night. My dog is scared to walk by the 15 Park area because of, one, the noise, or I can't tell you why they're scared, but there is a lot of noise and there are sparks flying. I'm concerned, given the drought conditions, that there are sparks coming. Although there are now, I don't know the exact number of garages that are currently connected to the house, but there are 2, I believe, tarps set up where work is done on cars underneath right now, as well as I've seen the barn open with lights on at all hours, where sometimes work is done there. I've seen, so I don't know who's doing the work. I do know that Christine and Tom's son is doing some of the work. Because I have seen him, I don't know if Tom is doing the work. I don't know if Christine is doing the work. I can't speak to that. I can only speak to my personal observations. It seems like a lot of noise and activity and creation of waste for tinkering of cars. And that is a concern that I have, the noise, the waste, the environment. It's changing the neighborhood a little bit. I see cars come in there. He said it's not a commercial business. I take him at his word, but the number of cars in and out has changed. The traffic on the road, there are cars left parked on the road in front of their house overnight at times, not just in the driveway. Those are sort of, you had indicated, the planning board's concerns regarding noise, environment, town resources. Those are my main concerns, I believe. I don't know what type of waste is being generated, so I can't speak to that. I can only ask that question. But I know there is welding and sparks, so there is waste there. And I get that. That's all, is that I would like the planning board to take into account that I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm the 5th lot away and I can hear what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Appreciate your
Thank you.
comments. Are there any
Barbara?
other comments from abutters?
Jasmine, it's John Doherty. I'd like to ask a question about Oakley Road. Because my reading of section 23 of the bylaw is that a corner lot that's on 2 streets has to comply with the setbacks as to each. And for an accessory structure, the half, if you will, is only at the half setback is only with respect to the side yard and the rear yard and not the front setback. So I guess my point is I would have thought that you'd have to comply with the front setback vis-a-vis Oakley and the front setback vis-a-vis Park. I mean, Oakley's laid out. I mean, it is a road. It's in the tax assessor's maps. I would think it'd be in the interest of the town to have the full front setback.
Just for the education of the other planning board members, sometime in the last several years, the HERS requested that from the Board of Selectmen that the HERS be allowed to purchase that property that extension, if you will, of the paper road. And the Board of Selectmen, because it's a policy of the board not to give up town land, did not decide to allow for the purchase. So that piece of Oakley Road on the site plan that extends up from the intersection is actually at this point undeveloped and wooded.
Yes, John Gertler here. Yes, it's undeveloped right now, but our property consists of 2 lots. And as we've seen from what's just happened at 12 Oakley next to us, when we sell this house, it will be demolished, leaving 2 lots, and 1 lot's only access is from that undeveloped part of Oakley Road. So it is a viable road that is important to our property.
Well, that will be an interesting case that comes before the planning board in the future then.
Well, do we
Well,
have,
what would be interesting about that?
Well, because the road doesn't exist right now, so if you build on a lot that doesn't have a road right now, then there's an access issue which has to go before the highway department, the Board of Selectmen, and the planning board. But that's not an issue tonight. So, Jody?
yeah, but to that point, if we have the road, even if it is a paper road at the moment, but it is a legal town-owned road, don't we have to deal with that? Like, as a planning board, are we looking at what the map is telling us or what the on-the-ground conditions are telling us?
We just mentioned the future of Dover.
So, Jasmine, you want to pull up the site plan? And would you address Jody's comment and question?
Can you see that?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Excellent. Okay. So even though Oakley Road is not constructed, has not been constructed, and is not currently in use, it is as a town-owned road. And so we should treat it as such because there is a possibility it could potentially not likely, but legally it could be used, right?
The
In the
town needs to
future.
maintain its right to put a road there.
Correct.
So we're going to think about it for the purposes of this evening or for the purposes of your calculations. You're considering that an existing like road. And that's how you determine, I'm just asking the question, that's how you determine the setback requirement. Am I right about that?
Yes, and the corner lot requirement as well.
But to Mr. Doherty's question, which I think has to do with on a corner lot, how do you determine which is the frontage?
That I would have to look into because we do have, it says specifically that it does have to be set off from the frontage, but the corner lot only specifies the distance that the structures have to be from this corner tangent here. It doesn't specify which one is utilized as the frontage and or both.
So
We don't have that written in the bylaw, I don't believe that. Under the corner lot provision that I have up right now, it just gives this calculation. And the clearance.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jasmine, if you
No,
look
that's okay.
at section 23, it requires compliance with respect to each street.
Section 23.
185-23.
Correct.
Lots abutting more than one street. In a case of a lot abutting on more than one street, the regulations as to setbacks from the nearest sideline of the street shall be applicable and respect to each street. Such a lot must have the entire minimum frontage on one street, but need not have it on more than one street, and therefore shall be deemed to be only one back line. So the setbacks from the nearest sideline of the street shall be applicable with respect to each street.
Correct.
But it says it has to have the entire minimum frontage on one street, which in this case seems like it's Park.
Park.
So
Right.
need not have it on more than one street. What is a back line, Jasmine, if you wouldn't mind helping me understand the last, and there shall, And there shall be deemed.
Like the
to
back
be-
line of your lot. So even though it's abutting
Rear.
on two streets, there's only one back line, not two back lines. So it's just the part that abuts the woods there and not the library, the church. Thank you.
I think, Jody, it's to establish the rear setback, right? So the frontage is the access, and then to establish the rear setback would be that the back of the property.
Otherwise, you'd have two back lines.
Right. Right.
So
This can be considered to be somewhat eminent. We're in our 70s. So I just wanted us to, that this isn't a long way off, and I'd like to, moving Dover forward, this would be part of that, so.
So Jody, just to confirm, Mr. Doherty's comment. We have the normal front setback
This is Park.
off of Park Avenue because
Yeah.
that's the front of the property. Right?
Yeah, that seems right, yeah. And then we consider Oakley a side, and to Jasmine's point, despite the fact that it's not actually a road, we consider it as a road because it is Dover property owned as a road. That's what we're doing, yeah.
Yep.
Which seems right. It seems like we got to do that.
Yep.
So Jody, just so I'm clear, is the issue with the Oakley Road piece is that the setback from the side to the proposed garage?
I think that's what Mr. Doherty was saying, was
Yeah.
he was questioning the 10 versus, I think it's maybe 50, I don't know.
20.
20. And Jasmine is confirming that it should be 10 for Oakley because it's not a frontage, it's a side setback. Even though it's a corner lot, but they do have the corner, from the corner to the corner of the proposed 15, if that makes sense. So thanks, Mr. Doherty, for raising that because it's a good question, but I think it seems to me like we have an answer for that. I'm not sure if you feel satisfied with that or if you want to discuss that further.
I'm not following you when you say you have an answer for that.
In Jasmine's read is that we consider Oakley as a side setback.
I don't think that's what section 23 says.
I think his point is that there are two frontages. There's one that is considered frontage for access,
Right.
which is Park Street, but the other frontage is also along Oakley Road because it's a road. So
Right.
it would also, I believe he's saying,
Right.
also have a 20-foot setback. Is that correct? Am I
Correct.
understanding you?
No, that's correct. Yep.
Right. No, I understand that, but sorry if I'm misunderstanding. I thought when we walked through section 185-23, Jasmine, you can, sorry, Jasmine, I don't mean to speak
No,
for
it's
you.
okay.
It sounds like you're confirming that it doesn't require that we use two frontage setbacks, but I'll shut up and let you clarify.
No, that's okay. So reading under corner lots, no, it does not, but reading under a lot abutting more than one street. Can you see this or do you still see the site plan?
Oh,
I
it's
just
all,
get that.
it's all black.
Oh, okay. Can you see this?
Nope.
Okay.
There we
Now
go.
we can. Yep, here we
Oh,
go.
okay. Right here where it says lot, the very top, lots abutting more than one street. In a case of a lot abutting more than one street, the regulations are as to setbacks from the nearest sideline of the street shall be applicable with respect to each street. So a
Mm,
lot must have the entire minimum frontage on one street, but they have to have the front sideline from each street.
Okay.
But I think Mr. Doherty is correct in saying that the buildings would have to be pushed back in another 10 feet,
Okay.
which is different from the opinion of the building, not commissioner, but inspector, Joe Doyle. So I would just like to make sure that he's aware of this provision because he was also, we had a conversation about that actually that I'm bringing up to you guys later, because he'd asked if we can actually add a footnote in 185-25 for the setbacks for accessory dwellings. And it was because of this project that he was saying it's not in the bylaw and people keep not realizing that it's there. So he was of the opinion of that the setback was correct as well.
Well,
That's good.
so we have a 185-23, which could probably be written in a more clear way.
Yeah.
We have a building inspector who says that the current plan with the 10-foot setback from Oakley is sufficient. And we have Mr. Doherty reading 185-23 differently, which one could see as well.
Carol?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what is troubling to me about this is that it's clear from the letter and the people have spoken who are abutters. There seems to be a general concern of the neighborhood with respect to, be it a non-commercial use or whatever the use is taking place at this address is of concern to the residents. And in 185, section 36, section C, number 2, it does have some language that addresses this, which is an extension of use means a difference in the quality or degree of a use that may have different effects on the neighborhood due to aspects including but not limited to parking, pedestrian, vehicular traffic, noise, lighting, and signage. And I think that and then it further is stated again under 185-36A, site plan review is also intended to promote harmony in architectural treatment, which is not really an issue here, and avoidance of incongruous or inappropriate character. And so I'm just where I'm getting at is that I think that there seems to be some resounding voice amongst neighbors who feel that whatever activity is going on in this premise, that it is disruptive to the neighborhood. And I'm concerned about the expansion of a garage might only further promote that to the abutters.
May I respond?
Go ahead. Well, Tom, Tom, excuse me for a second. Let me respond first, if I may.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry.
I just want to send some boundaries here, and I'm just one planning board member, but I think what we have seen in this situation, as well as some others over the last couple of years, is fear that the quiet rural atmosphere of Dover is being attacked by all kinds of stresses. And I think to the conversation we had at 20 Haven Street, I think about comments about folks revving their engines in their own driveway. I think about the conversation and the many hours of conversation we had last year when we were putting together the noise bylaw at the request of the building inspector, and where we specifically chose to keep it limited to construction noise because of the slippery slope of blowers and electric equipment and mechanical equipment and so forth. So the expansion of use and the extension of use has to do with businesses. It's what we used when we looked at the Dunkin' Donuts property, for instance. It doesn't have to do with an expansion or extension of use of one's own property unless it is a business. Jasmine, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this.
You are spot on.
So I am hesitant, given the hearer's response to the questions about the business. And I see no reason to not take their word that they are not running a business. So if we make that assumption that this is a residential piece of property being used by its residents for a hobby that involves cars and tinkering, and maybe folks with other cars coming and tinkering together, I don't know what the traffic is, we don't have bylaws that address those types of issues. And from the welding standpoint, if the neighbors feel that in the current drought situation that outside welding is an issue, then that should be reported to the fire department, which has set its own rules about outside fires, given the drought declaration. So Tom, would you like to respond as well, please?
Not really, but yeah. I'd like to address Bill's and Heidi's comments on traffic. And Heidi, you're welcome to come down and take a look at my barn anytime. I was emptying the barn because part of this is the barn has to move out of the way. And all you have to do is come and ask. The traffic that you're seeing is you need to talk to Pat Corrigan, who's building a monstrous house on Oakley Road. It has nothing to do with the cars that we have. Yeah, I have more than one car per person. In my family, I have 4 people that live with me, including myself. And I have a couple cars. My son has a couple cars. He's working on his car. He's working on his truck to build up a business, a mobile welding truck he's making. It's his own. The business, because it's mobile welding, will not take place in my yard, and I don't want it to. But in the meantime, he's restoring this truck, right? So yeah, that's happening. The traffic is the Oakley Road house, and they have comings and goings. They got dumpsters being dropped off, which are rattling your windows, Indra. Not the hammering and the sawing that you're hearing us doing. All you have to do is come by and take a look. Happy to show you around. The tarp in the back has nothing to do with cars. It has to do with all the crap that was in my barn that I had to take out because I have to move the barn, right? All that you could have come and taken a look and asked me a simple question. Thank you.
I would also note that on the question of waste, which is a general statement, I don't know exactly what waste it is, that again, if there's any concern that there is hazardous waste that might impact water and one's wells, then that should be sent over to the Board of Health.
And as you know, Carol, right, Dover doesn't allow to have a floor drain in a garage, so we don't have a floor drain in a garage for exactly that reason, right? What we're doing at our house now won't change. It's just going to be in the garage, not on the driveway. So I thought people would actually be enthusiastic about that.
Are there any other comments from planning board members?
Carol, I just had 2 questions. And I appreciate all the comments that have been made, both by the applicant and the neighboring residents and our own members. Some of the questions that I had was with the Storm Tech, I believe it's the infiltration system. I didn't see on the plan where your septic system is located. So I didn't know, Jasmine, if the Board of Health has weighed in, and I only ask because I know there are some regulations about distance between septic, well, and other structures.
The Board of Health signed off on this.
Okay, so they've already reviewed it. Okay,
Yep.
because I just wanted to make sure nothing was going to be moving from
Yeah,
that.
to answer your question, there it is noted on the site plan that the it's in the back. right behind the deck there. That's the septic tank and
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I couldn't quite, I
Absolutely,
saw
absolutely
leaching field, I
considered
just
that.
didn't see tank. Okay.
Yeah, and it's uphill from there, right? The leaching field is uphill from the catch basin.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then my only other question was going through the calculations for coverage. Is the current driveway, I just wanted to make sure in the lot coverage, is the current driveway included in that coverage?
Again, there's two lot coverage things we have to think about.
Yep.
One is the zoning, and that's a 20% limit. Does
Yes.
not include the driveway. It's just buildings, right?
I believe it's all impervious
Nope,
surfaces.
that's the groundwater. So there, as I said, there's two sections that we need to think about for ground coverage. One is a zoning, which has a 20% limit, if you recall, right? And that just counts the buildings. The groundwater impervious is 10%, so you can't have 20 and 10% counting the same thing, right? That then picks up the part of the driveway that's actually on my property, right? And says, all right, now we are over that, but then we have to mitigate, right? So that's what we're doing. We're recharging to get the groundwater bylaw that the 10% is difficult because that's not how a groundwater engineer, hydrologist is thinking about recharging water, right? So be it. That's what we're dealing with. So this what we've done is we've put a catch basin and it catches all the water that's running off of the new structure, pulling in the barn, but also it's going to take all that runoff from the existing driveway, which currently is not being, I mean, it's recharging, but just naturally, right? And we're going to catch that. Then that brings us below the 10% theoretical impervious, right?
Yeah, Jasmine, is that your understanding? Because I was under the impression that lot coverage was all impervious.
No, so that he's absolutely 100%. There's two different types of lot coverage, like he's saying. So there's your total lot coverage is in like how many buildings and things you have on the site. That's this right here. So that's with the current proposed garage. These are all the buildings on the site. This does not include your driveways, your things like that. This is just your lot coverage. So this is just the amount of building coverage on your lot. That has to be under 20%. And then there's impervious surface, which does include driveways, and that has to be mitigated anything over 10% on site, which it is. So they are at 13.5%. So they're mitigating that 3.5% on site. So to answer your question, the driveway is in here on both of them because they're only calculating the paved driveway because this is gravel, so it's impervious.
Right.
So it doesn't count in the impervious calculation and it doesn't count in the lot coverage calculation because it's gravel. So
Right.
the existing structures are on the lot coverage, and here's the new proposed structure. This is the lot coverage that has to be under 20%. And then here's the impervious surface, which includes the driveway calculation, which is right here at 953 square feet, and the new proposed garage, which is at 13.5%.
I feel like we had a discussion about this in the past, what constitutes lot coverage. And I know we definitely were not including any gravel driveways, but I thought I'll look at it again, but I might be mistaken because then what would be stopping somebody from paving their entire lot if they wanted to?
I don't think that we can. We can just require them to mitigate it on site.
Not sure that answer makes me comfortable.
I don't know that we have a way to say that you can't pave an entire lot. I don't know that we do.
I think it's the 20% coverage.
So so a couple things, folks, because this has been going on for a while here. I propose that we hold off on voting on this one way or the other to get a clarification on that issue.
The coverage?
Yes.
Oh, come on. Sorry. You are incorrect. I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to figure this out. But Jasmine and I went through the regs, the bylaws, and this is how it works. It says buildings in the zoning bylaw, 185, whatever. It says buildings 20%. It's couldn't be clearer. There's really no mistaking. Then the groundwater talks about 10%. Anything over 10%, it doesn't matter what it is. Anything over 10% needs to be
I don't have an issue
mitigated.
with the groundwater. You
So-
know, we spent a
so-
lot of time on chapter 159 just recently, and every site plan we're doing now that involves additional bills and so forth is falling under chapter 159, which is stormwater regulation. So I don't have a
Yeah,
problem
which is great.
with 10%. So I just have an issue with Val's comment about the driveway.
Can we look at the reg?
Jasmine,
Now.
do we have, I'm trying to find, as we're here, a definition of impervious surface. Do you know that if one exists in our bylaw?
Not
But
in
it's
our
not
bylaw.
impervious, Carol. That's not the one we're talking about, right? We're talking about zoning lot coverage calculation.
I understand.
20%. Yeah, and that impervious doesn't come up in that bylaw.
Well, it's
The word impervious
it's the
doesn't.
definite, yes, yes, I should not be using the word impervious. It's a matter of lot coverage. And whether a
Yes.
driveway is included in lot coverage.
Correct.
I
And
understand that.
the bylaw says buildings, 20%. And
So Jasmine, do you feel totally confident that a driveway does not count towards lot coverage?
I feel that that's how we've reviewed every site plan that's been for us up until this point, with that understanding of that being the interpretation of it.
Okay. Are there any additional comments or recollections that would help us in this discussion from other planning board members?
I think I'm just looking under the site plan review. And maybe I'm reading too much into this, but substantial, like change of use, substantial changes.
There
number
is no
4.
change. This has nothing to, I'm sorry, that's one thing I'm very confident. That has nothing to do with this application.
Okay.
It's a residential property. There's no expansion of use. It's not like Dunkin' Donuts adding tables to their,
No.
That's an extension or expansion of use. That's where we had issues with Walter way back when they went from a yogurt place to Dunkin' Donuts. That was an expansion of use. Listen, we have no doubt that there are rights that individual property owners have that we as neighbors or abutters would love them not to have. And this is, please, abutters, please understand that we are not discounting or minimizing your concerns that you've expressed both in your letter and tonight. We are not a subjective board. We are one of several boards in the town of Dover that deal strictly with the law and bylaws and regulations. And there might be gray areas every so often, but generally not. And sometimes we approve things that on an individual basis we may not like and we wish we didn't have to approve, but unless we have a legal basis for disapproving something, we need to approve it. That's what the planning board does. My personal view as a planning board member is that that this application meets the legal requirements that we have. And I'd like to hear from the other 4 members before we go for a vote.
Can I just, I'm sorry, can I just, isn't this right to ask Anderson Krieger for an opinion on the lot coverage and on section 23?
Well, we might, John. I just want to hear the comments from the other planning board members first. Thank you. Anybody want to speak?
Yeah, Carol, I totally support what you were saying. My questions that I'm raising are not in favor or against. It's just I recall us having a conversation about lot coverage and the definition of what lot coverage is in the past. Maybe it was before your time, Jasmine. I honestly don't remember the timing. And I remember us talking about paved surfaces were included, gravel surfaces were not. That's where my question was coming from. So if that change or if that definition is not part of our zoning, then it's not part of our zoning.
My understanding is that asphalt driveways are part of lot coverage. And
Yeah.
so therefore, Jasmine, for example, when you said somebody could theoretically cover their entire lot with asphalt, that's why when you said that that gave me a significant pause.
Right. Okay, George and Bill, you've expressed, George? Any comments relative to this?
No, I think it's been covered. I mean, if we're in agreement on the interpretation of 23 and then on the lot coverage, then it is what it is. I think the question is, is there enough ambiguity or questions there as to what those things mean to need to get clarification and push this off? I don't know if there is. I don't remember a gravel driveway counting towards lot coverage, and I remember something closer to what Jody just put forth. So unless there's someone else sees it differently, you know, I don't see it on that side of things. The 2023 seems like that's a little bit tougher, but I'm confident with the way that Jasmine has put that forth, though. I think, although as you say, Carol, it could be interpreted a couple of different ways. It could be written better. Let's put it that way.
And maybe we'll do that.
Yeah.
Jasmine, do you mind just bringing up the site plan one more time?
Yeah. I'm having trouble seeing it when I'm not, on my own. I'm having trouble seeing it when I try to make it bigger on my own screen. So
Not a problem. Give me
May
just
I
a sec.
ask a question? I'm just confused because I heard both from planning board members that driveway, they definitely remember the conversation that paved driveway does count definitively. And then I heard another one saying, okay, I understand and I agree with you that it doesn't count. But I think there was some, I'm not saying I know what the answer, but as an observer here, I heard people agreeing with one interpretation, but characterizing it in a different way. So I'm just confused, and I'm wondering why this needs to be rushed and why, as John Dougherty said, there can't be some request for clarification from attorneys. I don't,
Oh,
I have not
thank you
heard.
for thank you for your comment, Heidi. That's why we're having discussion among the planning board members now.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
So my question, Carol, I had was, so the dimensions of the new garage, proposed garage, I think I read are 28 by 38, which is 1,064 square feet, but right on this
26 by 36, Bill.
I'm sorry?
It's 26 by 36.
26 by 36. Okay. And so the number that you have there in red
Where were you looking, Bill? Up here?
is the 936. Okay, thank you. All right.
Well,
I couldn't tell my sixes from my eights.
I have a black box in the bottom of my screen. Does anybody else?
Yes.
Hold on. Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
So now could you raise it up so we can see more towards the Park Drive?
Do you
Park
need
Avenue?
more? Is that?
Yeah, a little bit more there. I wanted to see the calculations for the, there we go. So we're at 13.5%. So there is no issue with the 13.5% coverage. The issue is with the coverage, the lot coverage up above, which is at 16.9%.
And if you do the
que-
calculation with the driveway, Carol, of 953 square feet, it puts the total lot coverage at 21%.
Right, so exactly, that's the issue. I do not want to approve a site plan that is based on an erroneous understanding. And while Tom, I appreciate the fact that you worked very closely with Jasmine on this, and that you did all your due diligence in working on this with Jasmine and addressing all the zoning and other bylaws like chapter 159 stormwater that were in effect. The fact that we have this unclear definition needs to be resolved. So it would be my proposal that we ask the applicant to delay this until our site plan review, and that we bring it up at our next meeting, which is on January 6th, by which point we'll have had the opportunity to discuss this with town council, as well as with the building department, so that in the future and for this one, we are all on the exact same page as to what these definitions mean.
I'm frankly shocked that this is still unclear to the planning board, that there's not agreement among the board, that how this calculation works, that you're still trying to figure it out. That we've been doing this since the 1940s, Carol, I think you said, right? So that is deeply disappointing that we're stumbling on this calculation, which we've been doing since forever.
Well, it is unfortunate. I certainly, Tom, appreciate your frustration. And for those of us that have been doing these for a while, it's disappointing that we don't have a clear understanding. This is sometimes the type of thing when we talk about our bylaws and why the planning board has wanted to do a total review of our bylaws for a couple of years now, is because we don't have good definitions in our bylaws.
Well, you don't even have agreement among your own members.
Well, exactly. If there was a definition in the bylaw, then we would all agree to it, wouldn't we? So,
well, I just prefer to know that you don't selectively apply these decisions.
we work very hard to make sure that we do not. And if we've made a mistake in the past on this, once we get a definition clarified, we'll at least go back and take a look at some of the ones we've done recently. I don't think we've had one that has come close, so this one is relatively close. So, but we will check. We don't normally work with lots that are, quite frankly, this small, so it doesn't become much of an issue.
Can I?
On a small lot like this, will.
Carol, could I just ask, just so we're all clear what we're going to find out? The question at hand is whether or not a driveway, whether asphalt or gravel, is considered as part of lot coverage.
I think if it's just asphalt. I mean, I can ask if either, but if gravel isn't considered impervious, I don't know why it would be considered lot coverage, but I will ask either.
Jasmine, I would like to get,
I think we should just be very, very clear what the question.
Yes, but I think it gives us an opportunity to get a little bit granular in our questions, so that, right? And I would like to get written definitions of this. I would like you to check to see what's in the bylaws relative to these definitions. And if they're not in the bylaw and they're not clear in the bylaw, then we still have time to do another warrant article to get this cleared up.
But specifically for this property, the question is specifically what? We're asking whether or not, in this case, the driveway belongs as part of lot coverage.
Either the current paved driveway.
Yes.
Or the proposed gravel driveway.
Because right now, neither are included.
Right now, neither are included.
And I think one of the ways we could take a look at this, Jasmine, is that we can go back through a few past site plans. Because that ought to surface, not to, no pun intended, but that ought to help us look at that. Whether or not we've included driveways in lot coverage, that would be easy for us to look at.
Well, you know, we're working on 20 Haven Street right now.
Correct, and we're also, we have another one, we have, we have them all the time. We should be able to look at that very easily.
Well, Jasmine, when you think to 20 Haven and the calculations that were done by the engineer there,
Can I ask a favor? I'll tear up some blacktop. I really don't care. Can we get approval with contingent upon a lot coverage question, which to me is not a question, but fine. And with the understanding that if the zoning lot coverage does indeed include driveway, that I'll tear up asphalt to get under the 20%.
understand.
May I ask one more question, Carol?
Only if it's something new.
Well, it's just, if you're asking questions, I wasn't sure that the committee had given a definitive answer on the setback from Oakley Road. Again, this is just listening as an observer. I didn't think that issue was definitively put to rest either way. So if you are asking for advice, potentially potentially there needs to be advice sought on that too. That, again, I defer to you, it's your expertise, but as a listener, I didn't hear a definitive understanding of corner lot or two different streets either. I mean, I understood it one way, but I heard committee members explaining it both ways. So
On 125-23, yes.
yes.
So I think we know what needs to be discussed. I think the only issues left are the issue of lot coverage and 125-23 relative to the setback on Oakley Road. The other issues raised by the abutters are understood, but I do not believe we have any legal basis for addressing those. Those can be done through fire department or the building inspector, depending on what kind of issues that you're seeing at the site and at the residence. And we can move this site plan review to our January 6th meeting, at which point we'll have answers. Is that okay with the other planning board members? Let me ask if anybody object to that plan?
I object.
Planning board members.
Carol, can I just say something?
Just
Christine.
one moment. One
Let
moment.
him finish. Let him finish.
Do we have any objections to that plan from the four planning board members? Okay, Jasmine, you understand what the issues are that need to be addressed with Nina?
Absolutely.
Okay, Christine.
So I would just like to invite our neighbors to please come and talk to us. Don't call the fire department. Don't call anybody else. We're right here. We've been here for 25 years with you. I am so upset that I saw this letter, didn't know anything about it until today. I'm so grateful that Carol stopped by and took a look at everything and let us know about this letter. So please come talk to us. I'm happy to work something out.
One last comment on the lot coverage. One thing you have burned into your memory is the car club project, which was approved. Driveway was not considered in the lot coverage calculation there. So, and then that went to court, right? So that thing was scrutinized to every degree. I suggest suggest you guys do your homework and let's get this done.
Yep, exactly. And we will
And
get this clarified.
a hearty apology to Matt for not letting you go first. I had no idea this was going to take this long, so my apologies.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody who was here for 15 Park Avenue. You will be able to go to the January 9th agenda on the town website and find the Zoom link for that, and I assume that we'll see most of you then. Meanwhile, happy holidays.
So I'm not gonna be able to do mine at 14 Normandy Road.
Oh, we're gonna do yours next.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so item number 1B was 14 Normandy Road. And besides Matthew Hand, is there anybody else here for 14 Normandy Road? No? Okay, well, through the process, Mr. Hand, if you would like to present your application, and then we'll have our town planner go through it as well.
Yeah, sure. It's Matthew Hand at 14 Normandy Road. We're trying to install a pool.
Yes.
And I'm not sure what else. Help
You're
me,
also
because
installing
first
a
time.
patio, correct?
Okay, I'll tell you what, Jasmine, why don't you present this for us?
Absolutely. So there's a proposed 20 by 40 gunite pool, as well as a spa proposed. Sorry, let me just pull up the decision so I can give you the exact 8 by 9 gunite spa, landscaping, and patio. The pool is going to be installed at ground level, so it's an in-ground pool, and the property will essentially look the same as it does from that road. You can't see it from the site. So the site is at 7% impervious coverage, so it's below the 10%. They don't need to recharge anything on site.
Jessica, can you get those boxes out of there, please? So we can see the whole site plan. I don't know what those are.
That's me seeing you, so I can't make it completely go away
Oh,
because
I
that's
see.
part of my Zoom. So I'm not sure what to do with it. So is it better if I put it on the left,
Can
maybe?
you move it to the side, maybe?
Is it? It's off to the side now. Is that no, now it's on the bottom.
I think one thing we're not seeing on this on the left, if we could see the like where it says zoning classification, assessor reference, yeah.
There we go.
Can't
There we
see
go.
that?
Okay, there we go. There's driveway, by the way.
Okay, you can see this now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
So to Jody's point, in this calculation, the driveway is included.
And on 20 Haven Street, it was not. I checked it while we were talking.
Okay.
I think
I'm glad we're gonna get this resolved.
well, if I remember correctly, 20 Haven at first was only going to have it gravel, weren't they? And then they changed it later to paved.
No, I think it's still going to be gravel, but there is a paved pad already there.
Got it. Okay.
So the Normandy Road, which includes the driveway, is at the 20%, which is the upper limit. Correct?
Correct. That's the absolute limit. I think Tom just got kicked on and had to come back on, so I don't know if he missed some of that, but.
You mean Matthew?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Has this gone before the Board of Health?
Yes.
And has it been reviewed by Mike Anduri for chapter 159?
Can you explain to me what that is? Maybe it'll jog my memory.
Stormwater?
Stormwater. I am not sure on that. I think it has, but I won't say yes for sure.
Jasmine, do you know?
He was aware of it, and the lot coverage is below the 7%, so I didn't ask him to review any calculations, but I can confirm with him if he has or has not, but we can create a condition that if it has not been met, that we do have the condition that it has to comply with chapter 159 anyhow.
Right.
But he was aware of it, so I'm assuming he's seen it.
Yeah, he's seen it. He's been out.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if they had to apply.
And there's nothing special about lighting here. And our normal condition on lighting and our normal condition on filling the pool by water truck. We have no abutters here. Are there any questions from the planning board members? Jasmine, you want to quickly go through your approval decision?
Sure, let me pull that up. Okay, here we go. So it's the 20-foot by 40-foot gunite pool with an attached 8 by 9 foot spa, landscaping, and patio installed at ground level. The application complies with all the dimensional requirements for a pool. The existing driveway is not going to be disturbed. The existing parking is adequate. The proposed patio and fence material are in kind. It's unlikely it will have a detrimental impact. The structure is designed consistent with the neighborhood. The pool will have impacts on natural resources, so the site is subject to chapter 159 stormwater review. The proposed structure does not impact town resources or the harmony of existing buildings, and it does comply with the zoning bylaw. So the proposed conditions that we have are their standard conditions prior to the issuance of the building permit, or any modifications must come to the planning board. Any future modifications shall be approved by the planning board. The lighting on site must not spill over onto any adjoining property. The pool must be filled by a water truck. The site subject to review by the Board of Health and subject to review of chapter 159.
Okay, any other questions by the planning board members?
None for me.
Okay, in that case, I move to approve the following. After considering the application and other materials submitted at its meeting of December 9, 2024, the board approved the plans entitled Proposed Pool and Porch Plan, 14 Normandy Road, with the following conditions. 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, minor modifications to the site plan may be approved administratively by the planning board chair. 2, any future modifications to the site shall be reviewed and approved by the planning board. 3, the lighting of the site must not spill over onto any adjoining property. 4, the pool must be filled by a water truck. 5, the site is subject to review by the Board of Health. And 6, the site is subject to stormwater bylaw chapter 159 review by the Department of Public Works. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Jody?
Yes.
Val? George?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And Carol, yes. Okay, this is approved.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and apologize for the waiting.
Oh, no problem. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, I'm still here. I sent you your own,
Excuse me, I apologize, but our review of your application is complete for the night.
I know, it's just, can I ask why I didn't get a conditional one like that?
That is not a conditional review. That was a firm vote. The conditions of the decision have to do with the other land use departments, which yours will as well. So,
And I sent you the bylaw that defines what lot coverage is
So
that pertains to buildings. So take a look at that.
thank you, Tom, and
In January.
Jasmine will be getting back to you, and then we'll see you again in January.
Thank you.
On to agenda item 1D, which is the registry signatures authorization. Jasmine?
So this we did last year, I think for the first time it sounded like, because no one had recalled what it was, but this is just, we just need to renew our signatures for the registry every year, so they have a signature on file. So Jody, if I can grab your signature when you come into the office tomorrow, grab yours and Carol's. So Val, Bill, and George, if you guys can make it to the office, let me know. If you cannot, please also let me know. And Sue and I will figure out a way to either drop it in your mailbox or at the front door to get you to sign it. We just have to get those back to the registry by January. And again, it's just that way when we sign things, they know it's actually your signature on the decision or plans, what have you. So it's just for their record. They do it every year.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 1E, draft outreach plan for 2025 MBTA community engagement. I'll turn it over to Jody.
Jody, do you want screen share capability or do you want me to
That'd be great.
share? Let me-
So I think that, I would like to not spend a super amount of time on this tonight, but Jasmine shared with you an early draft of a outreach plan that we're building for the MBTA effort in 2025. I've made some changes to it, so I'm going to just share my screen, and you all should have. I'd like to actually share the Google Doc with you. I think, Jasmine, maybe you made an Excel version of the Google Doc, so then as I changed it, it didn't update, which is no big deal. It's fine. But I just tried to consolidate that project plan. So I'll show you what we're working on and sort of try to walk you through the effort. There's a couple things going on. The big picture, as you all know, is that we need to pass a bylaw to remain in compliance by the end of December of 2025. So we have essentially 13 months to get this done, but we're not starting from scratch because we've done a lot in the last year. And so this project plan tries to incorporate sort of everything we've done and then everything we're going to be planning in the new year. And it's divided up by category, as you can see in column A. The things we do around the development of the actual language of the bylaw, that's kind of category 1. Community outreach, which is basically like going and talking to boards of health, holding community listening sessions, meeting with the COA, all the things you might imagine that we would try to do to get the word out and to get feedback about this bylaw so that we can make it, as community built as we can possibly do. And then in addition to community outreach, we have the development of the overlay district. So we have a bylaw, but then we have to say, where's the bylaw going to be in force? And that's something we've also been working on. We currently have 4 areas that we've identified in town and worked with a consultant to model them using the state's compliance model, but we want to make sure to engage Dover citizens in that as well. So sort of like the work we'll be doing around the selection of the overlay district or districts that we would bring to town meeting. And then the last piece is communications, like how do we talk to town citizens about this so that we're really transparent, educating people, making sure that people are aware of what's going on and are poised to make an informed decision. So there's lots of moving pieces on this, and we're trying to go back to the beginning and say, like, what have we done and what are we planning? So we'll make sure you guys have this link after this meeting so you can go through. I'm going to be working with, obviously, Jasmine, obviously, Nina, hopefully all of you, because I think that the more informed you all can be about what we're doing, what some other towns are doing, that will be really, really helpful for us so that we can make this sort of a whole of townhouse approach to passing this bylaw. We have literally millions of dollars on the line in terms of state funding for infrastructure improvements and other things that we will be at risk of losing if we don't get a bylaw passed. So there's a lot of motivation beyond just, wanting to pass the bylaw because the state says we have to, and also because, it's what we do on the planning board. So that's the project plan. Jasmine's going to be integral. All of you are going to be integral. Nina's going to be integral. Other boards. Also, I'm going to be working with Chris Costello, who is going to be helpful in terms of taking sort of these events we plan to get people smart and educated about this and making sure people know about them so that we have people show up and ask us questions and engage with us on this. Because ideally, all of this leads to a special town meeting in September, late September, early October, where people are informed and supportive of what we're doing rather than coming in like guns a-blazing because they don't know what's going on. We really, really want to avoid that. And we want to build a bylaw and an overlay district that reflects, you know, what people hope it will reflect here in Dover. So it's pretty comprehensive, as you can see, if you scroll through it when you get the link. Love your feedback. It's going to evolve. It's going to be a working document. This is sort of like my straw man that we'll work on together, but love your thoughts. Love your thoughts on this and your support because it's a really big undertaking for the year.
This is laid out really nicely, Jody. I like the way you did this.
I agree. Kudos to all of you. I know this is a huge lift.
One of the things Jasmine's going to be helping us with is developing a Google shared folder where we're going to be sort of pointing to like towns and what they're doing. You all know that we're a small adjacent town, which has to do with the fact that we don't have, you know, our own station, and also we're small. So we want to use some like towns like Carlisle, like Sherburne, who by the way has to go before their town meeting this year. So they're on an accelerated timeline because they're a little bit closer to, I think it's the Framingham station or the Natick station. So they're a little bit ahead of us. We're the last group, small rural towns that don't have our own station. So we benefit from that because we're going to learn a lot from these other towns that come before us. But it's a really robust process. So I think we've done a lot. I feel pretty good. We have a draft of a bylaw. We have a project plan. We've got, you know, 4 areas that were under consideration. We've been doing a lot of work with the Housing Task Force to get this in front of representatives from the various boards. Like, we're not starting from scratch at all, but now it's time in January to really kick up the gas on it and really get it in front of people and to really think about our messaging.
So Jasmine, you want to talk about what you're doing to come up with the 2 dates in the fall?
Absolutely. So I've already spoken with Felicia Hoffman, our town clerk, because after speaking with our town administrator, Michael Blanchard, her availability, the school's availability, and the town moderator's availability are what we need to go by first. So I've asked Felicia if we can select a date in late September, like we said, Jody, and then another time in early November, Carol, like we had discussed, just in case it doesn't pass the first time in late September. We'd like to already have a second meeting date scheduled in case we have to hold a second town meeting if it doesn't pass the first time. So Felicia is speaking with the town moderator right now to get me 2 dates in late September that work to give to the board and 2 dates in early November. She said the school shouldn't be an issue because they don't set out their next calendar until June. So she said whatever dates we pick, we pretty much will have full reign unless something crazy happens at the school. But usually they know, you know, if we've booked it, we've booked it. So once Felicia gets me those dates that work for her and the town moderator, those 2 September and November dates, I'll put those out to the board just to make sure they work for especially you, Jody, and Carol. But yeah, obviously we'd like everyone to be there, but you know, and then Nina will be there as well. Obviously, whenever that is.
Thank you.
And then we have to hold our planning board public hearing. So there's something called a Form 7 that delegates all of the timelines of things that have to happen before a town meeting. We have to have the planning board public hearing on this bylaw within 65 days of town meeting. So we can't, even if it's 66 days, that's too far out. So we're not within it. So we have to sort of, once we have that date, backtrack when we can hold our public hearing for.
And in addition to a public hearing, we have to do all of the other things that we would do for any town meeting. Like, I'm sure there's like an open warrant or whatever it's called, you know, we do.
Yes, so we have to send it to the selectmen to create the warrant and to open the warrant, which Mona is very aware of, and she's more than happy to. But that's very that will just come as it comes. We didn't, you know, Mona knows that's going to happen, but they're aware of it. But they're like, yeah, just let us know. It's pretty much their attitude. They're like, just tell me when it is, and
what I hope we can do is consolidate everything, though, like including all those formulaic legal things we have to do into this project plan, because then we're going to be working with Chris to make sure we're promoting those things front and back to citizens. So sort of one-stop shopping for a whole plan around it would be awesome. The other thing that I know that we've been discussing is the idea of hiring a consultant. So Jasmine, maybe you can give us an update on your thoughts on that. If we have an outreach coordinator, I know that Sherburne was working with one, and there's a lot we can learn just by looking at towns, but ideally, we could use some of our planning board funds to get some support on this, because I know everybody's got a lot on their plates.
Absolutely. So we've actually reached back out to Jeff Davis from Horsley Witten Group, because he has so much knowledge on this, to see if he's available, what his quotes might be. We've reached out to Emily Ines. She is the president of Ines Associates. She worked with Medfield, and Maria De La Fuente had nothing but amazing things to say about her. And then Sherburne had used, sorry, I'm just finding their name. Collective.
Yeah.
I do have the name right here,
Yeah, I
but
know.
his gentleman,
I just can't
that
remember
gentleman's
it.
name also happens to be Jeff, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Jeff Saucer from
It's called Collective something or other, yeah.
Community Scale.
Yeah, okay.
Community Scale. And they did, I think Jody sent it to all of us, that Sherborne questionnaire that they had done, they had put together, that just was very, very well done. So they're also getting us a quote. So we've sent Jeff Davis already has all of our information, but I've sent Emily and Jeff Saucer our draft MBTA, as well as our proposed locations and how those fit into the model calculator.
Yeah.
So they've got a good basis to give us a quote on, based on what we've already got started. And then I've told them, probably at least 2 public information sessions, a public hearing at least. And, I had said potentially town meeting, because I wasn't sure yet, Carol, so we can just say we're all set with just Nina.
And maybe also a survey for us or something like that. I mean, I know
yes,
that.
and I'd also said visuals as well. So I said, I want, to be able to track community engagement. I want you to be able to compile data that's given to us. And then I'd also told them that we were considering potentially moving forward with more than one parcel, and how that might look, just so that way they had a good scope of what it was that we were looking forward to. So the 3 of them are going to be giving us quotes. So they'll give us a quote with their scope of work, what it will cost us to get going forward. They all know that we'd like to start as soon as possible. I said January, if we could start the public outreach. I had said that visuals were very important to us, how the density looks on this type of lot. And all 3 of those companies said that's definitely the visualization and the data collection is all something that they're as well within their realm. So we'll just have to, I guess, come out to see who gives us the best scope based on what we're looking for, and price, obviously.
Okay.
So when we have a special town meeting in September, and the public hearing has to be within 65 days, that takes you to the summertime. So I think we have to start thinking that the public hearing is a formality, because there won't be a lot of people around, and it's the open meetings that we have in the spring, where we do the education and get the feedback.
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
I see this as like February, March, April, and then town meeting is May, and then we basically have sort of June. And then we can use other mechanisms, like we can be barking all we want on emails and social and town newsletters, but our real educational window is February, March, April, in my personal opinion. And then to the extent that we can use the May town meeting, like with a flyer or, putting materials in front of people as they register and come into town meeting, yay, that's good too. Like, there's a lot of ways to chip away at this, but I agree with you entirely.
Yeah, I think you'll have a good idea of where Dover stands already by the time we have our public hearing.
Yep. The other thing is that I did send out to all of you, I believe, the information about Sherburne's meeting next week. I think
The 17th, right?
17th. If you go to their website and, Town of Sherburne and to the planning board, and they have all their stuff on the MBTA, they've done some great work too. And they have a wonderful, I think it was 5 or 6 question survey. That was it, but it got to the meat of the matter. And I urge you all to take a look at that. I'm assuming
that was really focused on location. Like they did that when they were trying to determine, like, where would you imagine this in Sherburne?
Right.
And we're gonna have to do some of that. We have 4 locations that we know meet our compliance model. But, we can't just sort of say, this is it. We're gonna have to get feedback, and we should, from folks, but fairly quickly. If other ones that we all agree make sense to include and get run through the compliance model, that will be something we have to do quickly.
Yep. And Bill, Jody and I will be in touch with you because we really need to reach out to the owner of the Junction Street property. And given your professional experience and thoughts and stuff, we thought you might be a perfect person to
Tag
do.
you're it, Bill. Tag you're it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just want to make sure I understand. When you said Junction Street, which property are you talking about? The property that was
Yep.
Bolte, whatever it's
Yep.
called? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Because that's one of our 4, Bill. We
Okay.
have 4 properties that we've run through the compliance model that theoretically could fit the bill. But we obviously haven't been, talking about those widely. That's something that will change in January. So we really have to get ahead of it by A, notifying the butters and welcoming them to meetings to talk about all of this and what it means, because, that's just reasonable for us to do. And actually, Jasmine, on that note, one of the things that I think Sue could get started for us in the immediate term is the abutters. Really knowing who they are for all 4 of those properties and building us lists so that we can start that outreach right off the bat in January. Sherburne has a really nice example of an abutter letter from the planning board, and I think it's a good model for us to follow. I think we'll talk about it offline, but get that out and then welcome them all to some sort of a planning board conversation.
We're gonna, just because of the compressed time frame, we really lost 6 months thinking that maybe that we would combine the MBTA activity and consultant with the Housing Task Force consultant that was approved at the Maytown meeting. And it became apparent in November that just wasn't going to work for a variety of reasons. So now we have to regroup and move ahead quickly. And any other questions on what's going on with the MBTA Community Act? Too much.
Good times.
Good times, yeah, good times.
Good. We're gonna have a plan. It's gonna be good.
Let's get on to item 1F, which is approval of the minutes of November 18th. I hope you've all had a chance to read them. And are there any comments or edits?
No.
If not, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of November 18th as submitted. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Jody?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bill?
Yeah.
And Carol. Okay. Those are done. Next item is town planner updates. 2A, which is the review of the letter on the warrant articles. Do you want to pull that up? The warrant was opened by the Board of Selectmen. It closes on January 15th. And as we discussed at the last meeting, we identified 5 articles. So I do note that there's a typo that Jasmine, the first line. So it's 5 articles, the following 5 articles. First line, planning board is 5 articles. Quite frankly, depending what the research shows with Nina and Jasmine taking a deep dive at the current bylaws relative to the lot coverage definitions and so forth, we may have a 6th, which is just some definitions and whatever, but we'll see about that. For right now, we still have plenty of time for that. So this is just a recap of what we discussed at the previous meeting. The easements from the May 2022 town meeting, the ADU changes to the bylaw that's required due to the new state law, the AHA, that was approved this past summer. The site plan review, moving it from 30 days to 60 days. The FEMA flood insurance rates, this is just an issue for us to be in compliance with changes they've made to the bylaws since we accepted their draft bylaw 2 years ago, and acceptance of the map. So item number 2 and item number 4 are basically just state compliance issues. tree preservation number 5, depending on the progress that gets made by Val and the tree committee and how we assess the lay of the land, we may or may not be doing that one, but we won't have to make a decision on that until late February, early March.
I would just mention that in number 3, I think just from a wording, the last line, we are extending, I think we're proposing to extend. I just, it's like a small thing, but I think that's the tone of this email. I mean, of this.
Oh, yes, right. Yep. Thank you. So we'll be working, of course, with Nina on all of these as well. We already have input from A&K, from Anderson and Krieger, on the changes we need to make to the ADU bylaw. We just have to look at those and decide if we're going to accept it all. I would suggest, given how long it takes to get regulations done after bylaws are done, that as we're looking at the ADU bylaw for town meeting, that we also make the necessary changes to the regulations and maybe handle the public hearing right after the bylaw is approved in May. We did a stormwater bylaw in May, and we're now 7 months later, almost 8 months later, we still don't have the regulations in place. So I think it's best to do them together. So I don't see any difficult issues. I don't see anything that's going to require a lot of time. I was asked the other day by the chair of the warrant committee, Woody Weiss, how many we had, and I said 5, and he gave me that look again. I said, don't worry, they're simple ones this time. So let's hope that's the case. At the January 6th meeting, as is our practice, we will assign individuals to each of the 5. So for those that don't have an obvious assignment, obviously tree preservation is Val. And George has been working with Jasmine on the easements. But we've got the ADUs, the site plan review, and the FEMA floodplain to assign to somebody as well, since the planning board members have to present these at town meeting. So that's it on the town meeting projection at this point. And that takes us to item number 2B, which is the work that's going to get done to get the easements to town meeting and get to yes. So I'll turn that over to George and Jasmine.
Sure. So I'm actually just going to share the draft notice that we have to the homeowners, which is essentially the exact same notice that was drafted last time around in 2022 before this was pulled. So it essentially just gives overview. We are sponsoring the articles. Here's what easements are. Here's how we got to where we are, which is that they were gifted to the town but never formally accepted at town meeting. Here's what that means to the community, and here's why it's important for us to accept them at town meeting. The only thing we don't have set in stone on here is the meeting date in which we will be discussing this with the abutters. So we've been in touch with Jillian, I forget her last name, something close to Bagger. And she is going to meet with George and myself this Thursday at 10 o'clock on Zoom, just so that way we can give her, she's with Anderson and Krieger. Nina had given her our information so she can help us out on this. So we're going to meet with Jillian this Thursday just to discuss this is what we're looking to do. We're looking to hold this public information session with all the abutters to the easement. We'd like to send them this notice. Can you be there to please answer any questions? She said, absolutely. So we're just going to meet with her quickly to just give her an overview of our expectations and see if there's anything in addition that she needs from us. And then also just to make sure that the process goes through, entirely. Once, if it does get approved at town meeting, then what's the process for getting all of these easements to acceptance, because they're all technically already recorded. So she's just going to be here to help us with the fine tuning, smaller details, and largely that public information session where people may have questions, legal questions that we may not potentially have the answer to off the top of our head.
So the bottom line is to avoid the chaos from April of 2022 and make sure that when we stand up at town meeting that every resident whose lot is involved with an easement that the town meeting's being asked to accept has had their questions answered and understands it and hopefully support it.
Yep, that's it. We don't want any surprises this time for sure.
Just out of curiosity, why would a homeowner support this?
That's what I'm,
It
that's
just
what I'm,
depends on the purview of your homeowner. So the way that we view easements in the community is that, you know, they protect open space, they protect against development, and in some cases they were necessary requirements to install the subdivision.
Right.
So in some cases, these easements were necessary. They're already there, they're already existing, they're already legally there. But right now, a planning board has the authority to rescind this easement, which could potentially impact future development. In Dover, it could potentially impact the development of that area. So right now, this protects that easement from being relinquished easily for development purposes, whereas the town approving it being town accepted, it now has to be released at town meeting. So there's sort of that provision of safety against future development of this area. Whereas if it exists now and nobody uses it, that's great. Let it maintain existed. It's almost like a type of open space in that way. So, you know, we're not trying to encourage the use of it, which was something that open space had suggested, and I strongly advised against it. I actually don't want to encourage the opening of these easements if they're not actively being used, but I would like, they are already existing. I would just like them to be, you know, protected from future boards that may have different development ideas from the one that we have now.
Right. Although like when we relinquished the one a couple of weeks ago, I forget which one that was.
Draper, yes.
I remember asking this question because like now we're saying that this planning board is willing to consider relinquishing. So if I was a homeowner, I'd be more inclined to want to deal with a planning board than a town. But anyway, that's just my perspective. I'm just wondering. I don't disagree with you, Jasmine. I do get it. And I just am wondering about how we're going to communicate to homeowners about it.
And hopefully Jillian will have some other advice on what she's seen in other communities as well, because that's really the only, I don't want to say argument, but that's really the only strong standing of why you would want to protect them, is to protect against future development, or if they were actively being used, you want to maintain that use.
Right.
Is really the only two arguments I could see in favor of maintaining them and accepting them at town meeting. But Jillian may have some different perspective.
Yeah, because if you remember, the reason we had to pull it was that the week before town meeting, an individual on Draper Road contacted all his neighbors on Draper Road and claimed that hordes of people will, for the first time in 30 years, would start using this easement because of town.
Right.
meeting.
Which,
So-
Right,
I
'cause
mean,
suddenly now
that is a
everybody-
great, you know, point, because no one knows they exist. So now to their
Exactly.
point, we're bringing this out into the open and saying, hey, look at this. But, you know, I think those are great questions to have for council, because I'm hoping we're not the first community that's run into something like this. And by listening to Nina, she didn't sound surprised by it. So I'm sure it's something that they've dealt with all of the time. And that's why she recommended Jillian, because this is really more her foray, her expertise is this area. So again, hopefully she'll just have some more background, or might be able to give us a different perspective on what the benefits really are, in keeping these as town owned and accepting them at town meeting to only be relinquished at town meeting.
yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? At the end of the day, it's ease of rescission. And Jody asks a good question. So that's something that's going to have to be communicated properly. So you've said a lot already, Jasmine. But yeah, speaking to council is going to help that out. I think I'd like to hear what happens in other towns as well, because it's clearly not going to be I want to say an easy sell, because in some ways it's not a done deal, but it's just a bit
It's
procedural.
jarring, especially, it is in your deed, but not everybody was made aware of it when they purchased their home. Not everybody went through and realized they had the easement there. So for some people, this is the first time they're even being made aware of it. So I can see that is absolutely jarring. But again, I think if we just reiterate, we have no intention of opening these as trails or creating open space out of them. We want them to exist as they are. We would just like them to be town accepted, to protect against, say, a developer coming in the next 20 years and buying up 3 properties and going to the planning board to relinquish that easement, so that way they've got more space to build a parking lot,
So, we hopefully there won't be objections. Preferably people will understand it. At best, it's maybe, shall we say, a begrudging acceptance of reality.
Right. They are there. They
And
are
they,
existing.
and they're not going to object at town meeting. Because I think the other compelling arguments will clearly be supported by non-easement holders. Okay, so that's what's going on with the easements. And item number 3, chair updates. The town report, it's that time of year, is due January 6th. Jasmine is working on a draft. Sue is working on the data, which is number of SPRs by category and ANRs and whatever number of things we've done through the various meetings that we've had.
And Val is also working on
And
tree.
Val is doing the tree thing, right? Thank you. So we'll have something, it's due on the 6th. Our next meeting is also the 6th. We'll get something out to you, after the first of the year. And that January 6th date from the town report committee, they appreciate and understand is a goal. And leave it at that. So we'll get something to them, by the second week of January at the latest, and that should be fine. We did have a wonderful rail trail meeting last week of the Rail Trail Working Group. Val, myself, Eric Loeffler, Kevin Ban, Chris from Park and Rec Commission, Mark Galoni, Mike Blanchard, Kevin McCabe, and two members from TEC, the engineering firm that's going to be the design work. Val, please feel free to share. I thought it was a fantastic meeting. It was really for TEC to get up to speed on background. So, most of they'd already looked at all the material, the previous reports. The discussion really was input from, quote, the old timers, those of us that have been working on this for well over a decade. And I thought it was a fantastic discussion and very enthusiastic. They have a timeline that shows a special town meeting in the fall. That was not the venue to discuss that. My recommendation, I think Val agrees, is that getting the MBTA community passed in the fall is the most important thing for Dover because of the financial implications. And if we try to do and the rail trail is also a very sensitive issue. And to try to do both is going to confuse the issue to the detriment of both. But we will have that conversation offline with Mike and Park and Rec. But other than that, I thought the timeline was great. They're starting the research now, and they hope to have a draft report to look at in May or June, I think. So they're moving along.
Yeah, I
Very
believe they're
exciting.
starting the survey work, and they said by January they'll be completed with the survey work and starting to put together
The design stuff.
Yeah, designs, basic designs.
Yep. They're using drones to take a look at the stuff and yeah. So that's it for that. And now only an hour and 23 minutes late, we are getting to item 3A, which is, excuse me, a discussion about the associate member position and comments, thoughts, and whether we will vote tonight or whether you want to hold off until January. So I will open it up to anybody for comments and thoughts. Da, 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 da. Anybody want to start?
I think we have 3 great candidates. I'm so pleased with each of them. I would like to vote tonight if anyone else is interested. I think the sooner we can get someone onboarded and working with us, the better.
They are still on with us, just to let everyone know, just so that way you're mindful of what you
This is a public meeting by law. And to the 2 that are on, is Lou on? No, just the 2. So,
and Matthew.
yeah, so for the 2 that are on, even if you chose not to stay on tonight, you could always look at it on replay. So the discussion is discussion, but thank you for the offer.
And we would hope that all, the other two candidates would still be very, very interested in the position opening up and in the spring for another associate member position, as we're going to, we have a new position being filled and another associate member position opening. So if it's something you're really passionate about, please keep that in mind.
I must say that as I was thinking about the three, the fact that I'm thinking in terms of 2 out of the 3, because by the third week of May, we'll have 2 out of these 3 candidates, assuming that the other 2 wish to continue and choose to run for election. So I think that actually that's had an impact on the way I think about it personally.
Carol, is it customary though that we would have this discussion as a committee with the candidates before us, or do we typically go into more of a closed door session?
This is not legal. This is not legally allowed to be a executive session.
Okay.
There's only like 5 criteria, Bill, that you can go into it for, and this isn't one of them because it's usually only something that would impact somebody, the way somebody would view something, whether it be illegal, something financial, something of that nature.
Litigation, where you're talking about litigation plans and that
Right.
type of thing. So this is the transparency of government right here, as uncomfortable as it may be.
Okay.
So does anybody want to start? Otherwise I'll start, but does anybody else want to start?
Start, Carol.
Okay. So first of all, I think all 3 candidates are fantastic and I'm so pleased. I don't think we can go wrong with either one or the second one that's going to show up hopefully, 5 months from now. I have, as many of you know, I've spent well over 2 decades now trying to get people involved in town government. And I'm concerned, I've always been concerned that it's the same group of folks that tend to be involved in a lot of things, which is understandable for a variety of reasons. But it's certainly not the best way to approach those boards and committees that require volunteers. And it's in the planning board, especially when I joined the planning board, which was 8 or 9 years ago now, I think the combined experience of the other 4 members was over close to 50 years. I mean, think about that, 50 years. And, some of the discussions that we have here, and certainly the discussion tonight about 15 Park and lot coverage and all that kind of stuff. This is a committee where history and experience really, I think, plays a very important role. So I'm really focused on getting a new generation of folks, residents onto the board. And I will put the stake in the ground for the oldest generation here in the committee. And I would, and then we go back, probably if we sort of did ages and stuff, I think we may have almost every decade covered from my decade on back. I'm not sure, so my preference for the associate member now, recognizing that hopefully one of the other 2 will join us in May as well, is to vote for Matt. I think everybody is equally qualified, really. But I like the fact that Matt has the potential to be involved in the planning board for quite some time and in town government for quite some time, assuming he likes the planning board, and if he stays in planning board or moves to other things. But it's not often that you find a younger folk, if you will, that is willing to spend the time on something like the planning board. And I think it's very important. And I think the planning board is richer for depth of experience and years of experience. And I'd like to see, that grow. So that's my thinking.
Appreciate that, Carol.
There you are. Anybody else? I don't want to be the one that makes a motion with one candidate without having discussed the others. I don't think that's fair.
So I'm sorry that this is a vote by all of us right now. There's not sort of a nomination aspect. Can you just go through the procedure here real quick? Is it a straightforward vote by each of us right now and we're done kind of a thing?
Once we vote, we're done. Okay, I'd like to, but to make a motion, I can either, without additional comment from all of you, make a motion to appoint Matt and have yays or nays. And if it's nays, then somebody else has to make a motion for Lou, or somebody else has to make a motion for Katie. So if we have a sense of where we are, and if there is a majority consensus, then we can make just one motion and handle it that way. Otherwise, we'll just have to go through probably more. I just watched the movie Conclave, so probably more like these ballots for the Pope that can go on and on and on until something gets whittled down. Great movie, by the way.
We'll see what color the smoke signal is afterwards.
Right.
Well, I'll say I really, really love these conversations we have with these individuals, and think it's really cool that people are interested in the planning board, because that's not always been the case. You know, we've been working harder. So I think it's so exciting, and I think it's awesome that we have really qualified, super smart, enthusiastic people who are excited to learn about what we're doing and contribute to what we're doing. I would definitely appreciate the experience piece. And I think back to when I came onto the planning board, literally knowing nothing. And I feel like the learning on the job aspect of this is great, but having some background in some of the issues we're talking about is also great. And I think it would have benefited me. I think that, you know, as we saw tonight, like there's so much thinking about other site plans or thinking about other experiences that like prompts a question in your head about something we're looking at on a given evening. So I agree with you, Carol, that helping to start to set the stage for that kind of institutional knowledge is super important. So I would agree with you in your support of Matt. And I think we could also get that from candidates, really. But I agree with your logic, and I think it's
Anything else from the other three?
We're just speaking on Matt now, correct?
No, nope. You're speaking on your thoughts on who you would like to see of the three.
Got it. Understood.
Unless
Yes.
you feel that one of the three is totally unqualified and should be dismissed from consideration.
I certainly won't be saying that. No. No. I would like to put my vote for Lou Ryan, though. First off, I'd want to say, you know, this has been said, but I remember when I started, let's just say there wasn't this amount of supply of talent, people willing to throw their hats in the ring for this. So not only do we have the numbers, but we have the quality here, I think, which is good to see by all of the applicants here. So very much a good sign and well appreciated, especially on the age front, as you point out. Yeah, so Lou Ryan, you know, incredibly, I've known him for a while, and so, you know, I know him to be a very conscientious, thoughtful, hardworking, conservation-minded individual for sure. Very concerned about native flora and fauna in his yard, that's for sure, and water conservation and all these types of things, which I think is a good thing. You know, he was pretty modest, I think, when he was at our meeting, but he manages a lot of people and quite at quite a high level of fidelity, and so is used to, I think, wrangling a lot of differing thoughts and opinions and being held to task for quite a weighty things. So he's no stranger to that. So I'm sure he would do a fine job with, you know, determining sort of permeability of driveways and things. He's also passionate about Dover, been here a long time now. So I know he's been looking to throw his hat in the ring, and has asked me quite a while ago if anything ever came up, let him know. So he had reached out to me a while ago. So with all that said, I think he would be a fine addition.
Thank you, George. Bill, Val?
I think people are making excellent points. I tend to leaning towards a candidate with a legal background because currently we don't have any sort of legal counsel, so to speak, internally within our committee. Obviously, we have Nina, but I feel that there is spending as much time as I do around lawyers, I think they typically have a perspective and a way of looking at things and thinking that can be fresh and can be somewhat different than non-lawyers. So I like both Matt and I like Kate as well. And candidly, I think they both seem like fine candidates, and I would be probably very happy with either one of them. So I personally just think my criteria right now is having some legal background to this committee would be good.
Excellent
Yeah, I
point.
agree with Bill. I think you put it very well, Bill. I think both Katie and Matthew would be great. Probably no surprise, I'm leaning toward Katie. I'm always the odd one out. I think that her comments tonight really showed that she understands a lot of the issues that we're dealing with and has an open mind and a good perspective and ability to grasp concepts quickly, and you know, some level setting kind of perspective toward those. So I appreciated Katie's comments tonight.
Okay, so
Now what do we do?
So it sounds as if, are we all in agreement that having an attorney, again, keep in mind that 5 months from now, we'll have another member. Okay, but do we, and the associate member that we appoint tonight can choose to run as a full member in the spring, and one of the other members could run as the associate. Okay, so that'll all have to be worked out, maybe amongst them or with support from
Can I
us.
run as an associate?
Hmm?
Can I run as an associate?
Me first. Well, as we know from our associates' experiences, the only difference between associate and a full member is that they can't vote, but they do the same amount of work, so if not more. So, so if we agree that at this point, since we have two wonderful candidates who are attorneys, that we should consider those two and put Lou aside for a moment. Is that a good way to start thinking about it, given everybody's comments? So then we have Matt and Katie. So at this point, I think the best approach would be to we have to make a motion for one of them. If that person gets the majority, gets 3 votes, and that's the end of it. If the person doesn't, then we make a motion for the other person. For the majority. And I have a coin. It's Australian, as one would expect. So it's not exactly heads and tails, but Queen Elizabeth actually is on this. So I'm just going to do heads and tails. If it's tails, it's Katie, and if it's the Queen, it's Matt that will do the motion on first. and this is tails. So, I don't know why I have Australian coins in my desk drawer. Anyway, so I'm going to make a motion to, approve the appointment of, Katie Williams to fill the Associate Planning Board position until the town election in May of 2025. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, so just to remind everybody, if Katie gets 3 votes, then it's Katie. If Katie doesn't get 3 votes, then I'll do the same motion for Matt, and hopefully he will get the 3 votes.
Better
And we'll-
get your three.
Alrighty. Hmm?
You better get your three.
It's already 9:40, folks. So with that being said, we have a motion that's been seconded to appoint Katie Williams an Associate Planning Board position. And I will just go through the voting list based upon how you show up on my Zoom. So George,
Having been turned down for my guy, I will say yes for Katie, if that's what we're doing. Yes.
okay. Bill,
I think I'm gonna go with Katie on this one, but I hope that Matt won't go far.
I agree.
So Katie,
okay. Jody,
I will hold out for Matt.
good.
okay.
Like that.
Val,
I will support Katie.
okay. And I'm supporting Matt. So, Katie it is. Katie, you there? Congratulations. Matt,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And congratulations, Matt, because clearly you're an excellent candidate.
Congratulations. No, I will be back when the next opening becomes available. So no concerns. I'll certainly be trying again.
great. Matt, and Katie, I will contact you over the next day or so just to talk about some procedural stuff relative to Katie, your position as associate, and what you have to then do again in March, running at the caucus, and for the town election in May. And Matt, the same thing for you. And I will talk to Lou about the same thing as well. So the process right now will be, Jasmine, if you would send a memo to the selectmen that we would like them to approve our selection of Katie to fill the remaining term at the associate level. And the next selectmen's meeting is on the 19th of December. So if we get the letter out this week and you hand deliver it to Mona and beg to be on the agenda, then we can get this done
Perfect.
before the holidays. Okay, thank you all very much. I think the meeting lasted a little bit longer than we had thought. But hopefully, what we find is that we get situations where we say, gee, we need to do a bylaw for this, or gee, we need to get this clarified, even if it's things that have been around forever and we should know. So let's just put this into a learning experience category, take advantage of it to clarify the stuff and get the clarification from Nina. And then Jasmine, a recommendation from you whether we need to do something to our bylaws. So that we don't
Absolutely,
run into
clarify.
them again, okay? I think it's also worthy of a discussion with Joe and Walter in the building department, because they're dealing with this every day as well, and then Jerry.
Right.
And we need to make sure that I think even before you maybe email Nina is to talk to the 3.
Right. Just to get
see-
there.
To see what their operational understanding is.
Right. Exactly. I certainly will. And I'll let you know
Right.
as soon as I know.
Yeah, so it's those 2 bylaw sections that need to be looked at. What we said is that it's unlikely we're ever going to get in the near future to do that kind of thorough zoning bylaw review that we'd like to see. So we just nibble at it. And this is just another nibble.
It's amazing how these things just emerge. And I can sort of see how this happens because so often I realize that I just look at the lot coverage and think, oh, okay, that's lot coverage.
But it's usually well below the 20%, which is
Yeah, you're
probably why.
right.
It's
It's not
even
even-
that huge horse barn that we just did, the lot
Yeah.
coverage was still at like 8%.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Plus the
yeah.
lots are so big. I mean, when was the last time we did, this is a half acre lot. When was
right.
the last time we did a half acre lot?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a really
Ja-
interesting point about the construction of the Corrigan house.
I'm
I thought
sorry,
that-
what?
I thought that was a super interesting point at the end of that discussion about the home being built, the Corrigan house being built. I hadn't realized that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, and it's on. Take a look at Zillow. You won't even believe what it's on for.
What's the address?
It's on Oakley Road, whatever
It's on
number.
Oakley. It's on actual Oakley. Okay.
Yeah. And which is just around the corner to you know, Park and then Oakley. And it's on for gazillions of dollars. And it's not the neighborhood of gazillion, you know.
12.
And here we are talking about a, what, 26 by 36 or whatever it was, barn.
Yeah.
Okay, spending 45 minutes on a site plan review, and somebody puts up a, you know, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 house on a half acre lot, and we have nothing to say about it because it's not site plan review for individual homes. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really, really interesting.
Jasmine, I'm wondering if maybe two definitions could be clarified. One is lot coverage, and if
Yep.
we're including driveways. And then the second is, do we consider driveways as a structure? Because I think when you look at like insurance and things, they consider driveways.
We do have a
paved-
definition of a structure, which is it has to have a certain number of walls and a ceiling and a roof for a structure.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, thank you.
So we
If
do
a
have a
driveway is
definition
a
of structure.
structure, if a driveway is a structure, I've got all sorts of things I need to fix with my my knowledge of the English language.
Okay.
No, absolutely right. And, you know, Val, it might be interesting to take a look at the, at chapter 159.
Mhm.
Because we have it, I've just pulled it up. We have a definition of impervious surface.
Mhm.
What we don't have is a definition here about lot coverage.
Right, and the only reference, even if you search the entire bylaw and search lot coverage or 20%, the only reference to it is in the table that says 20% lot coverage. It's the only time it's referenced in the entire bylaw.
Right.
You know,
So,
Carol, I was thinking more about it. I think our discussion about lot coverage was when we were looking at the definitions and updating definitions. And I think, did we pull that and we ended up not putting it into the town meeting or something for some reason? I feel like that's where our discussion came up around that.
maybe, you know, when.
And that was
you know,
when Courtney was here.
When Bill stood up and did all those definitions and everything. Yeah, I could go back and see if I could discover that. That's possible.
I remember we pulled some stuff and I'm just wondering if that was one of the things that we pulled.
Yep.
Yeah, because I feel like it was when Courtney was here and we had a big discussion about what's included and what's not and impervious versus pervious.
Right.
Wow. Good memory.
Oh, I think we have a good definition of pervious and impervious.
Right.
As a matter of fact, according to a conversation that Jasmine had with Mike and Jerry, and that we used with the Center Street solar array that we just approved, solar panels are considered impervious.
Yes.
Yep. So I think the issue more gets into lot coverage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
Yep. And, you know, even if Nina comes back and says, you know, look at this part of the bylaws, it's clear. If you put it together, it's clear. We should get something written.
Yeah.
Clarifies it and get it to the building department and to Njeri. So that we're all on the same page.
Right.
You know, it's its whole issue of memory and history, and that's not the best way that the town should be operating.
Right.
So let's get it clarified in writing, one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Anything else from tonight? In that case, see you on January 6th. Happy New Year, happy holidays, happy family, safe travels. Let's hope for some snow, not when you're traveling.
Yeah.
And
You're here.
you're here. I want to get out to Wachusett on Thursday and see if my husband's new knee can survive on a ski. So I'm hoping the rain tomorrow isn't too bad.
Wow.
We got plans to go out to Lake Louise in February. I'm going, well, we could cross country ski, but I'd like to do some downhill out there too. Anyway, I hope you all have wonderful plans for the holidays.
You
And,
also.
Thank you. And there's a lot of work going on in the planning board office, and that will continue. I think because we have a 4-week spread, that some of the more important issues that came up tonight and so forth, that we will communicate to you via email and
Yeah.
not wait until the January 6th meeting to update on everything. And again, just MBTA, MBTA, MBTA. There's actually nothing, I know, there's nothing more important. If we have to drop everything else, we have got to get this MBTA Communities Act done. And we're all going to have to be involved in that and talking to our friends and neighbors, over coffee or martinis to get them to get to town meeting as educated voters.
Mhm.
So with that, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
you.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Happy
Yeah.
holidays.
Good
Thank
night.
Bye.